Hey everyone, how's it going? Blue Rise here. In the words of Akihiko,
I've been waiting for this.
so this is SINoALICE. Honestly, my first impression, I'm not really impressed, if I can say. Maybe my expectations were set too high. You know, I see Yoko Taro's name put in it, and I'm just like, oh man, I love Nier. I've loved Drakengard.
Shut up!
So I was excited to see what he could perform as a mobile game. Now, Nier Replicant, I think it's Replicant, is another mobile game from the same creative minds that'll be coming out, I don't know when. Overall, I've played this game for just a little bit, but I feel like I've pretty much gathered the gist of it. And honestly, I just want to talk about the things that I don't like or I think that could change. But first, let me get this out of the way. What do I really like about it? Because this is really just going to be kind of like a gripe video. What do I like about this game? For one, the characters, the art, the voice acting is pretty good, even though a bit cliche, but good. The game hits atmosphere very well, and it's really not hard to get into, like just from jumping right in. But I feel like there were many creative decisions that they could have made that make this game stand out a bit more. Because to be honest, this is just your average gacha fare. That's really it. It's just your average gacha fare. It does very little to actually change anything that you've already played. For people who are just jumping into gacha, or maybe who are into anime aesthetics, this is a fine game. But for those who have played gacha games before, this will be nothing shocking, and to be honest, I'm not sure if I would add it to my average repertoire of games I already play. So we have this thing called the Purification, and you can see this game has stamina. Honestly, it should have thrown away stamina from the get-go. Disclaimer, I didn't actually look at anything pertaining to the game. The only thing I've known about SINoALICE is the art before even knowing the game was coming out. I've actually saved the art plenty of times before knowing anything about the game. And I was really into Alice's design. I loved her hairstyle, and I loved the little fire ribbon that she has. I thought thematically, it was really freaking cool. But anyway, I got a little sidetracked there. Stamina. This game shouldn't have had it at all. It's an unnecessary thing to the whole game. The flow of gameplay is ruined because of the stamina system. And why is that? Because they added a thing called Purification. Right here, this is your Purification. You can get tickets to replenish your Purification. And we're going to go ahead and use one of the Purification tickets right now. So here in the Purification, all you have to do is swipe and take out the enemies. The more enemies you take out, the more stamina that will be replenished after you finish this. So there we go, we take out a bunch. You also gain XP, so you can also rank up while doing this. There we go, like that. But I feel like this is unnecessary, because if you're going to give us a way to get free stamina, of course it charges over time. Why even have a stamina system at all? It just feels redundant. There you go. And then we can also activate a little special thing. Like, this alone should have been its own mode that had its own benefits. So we're going to go ahead and take all those guys out. Rank up, see? Time up. I believe a good majority, I'm going to make a daring thing and say 95% of people who play mobile games, any game with a stamina system that can be replenished with the premium currency, don't replenish stamina that way. I'm going to guarantee it, 95% of players don't do that. Those who care enough will plan their stamina out or play consistently, and those who don't won't care enough to use their money to actually replenish their stamina to finish an event. It just doesn't happen. It's illogical. It's a waste of money. Again, something I do like about this game is the characters, and I like the idea of having different and separate character classes. That way you don't overbloat your whole gacha with a bunch of characters. At the end of the day, no one is going to care about. So each character has varying classes with different looks, some of them with different lore, but regardless, it's the same characters you can at least come to learn. Like Alice here, who I've come to like a lot. And all of the characters have these nice live 2D models. Like, look at this. This is a very nice 2D model. Now remember this, because I want to touch back on this later about the 2D models, the live ones. Now, to be honest, I picked Red Riding Hood as my first character because I thought Alice was a bit cliche. But again, just showing you these 2D models. So here we're going over the story mode. You have co-op battle, event, and then main story. Event is obviously your grinding stages and whatever events are going on. Then you have your main story, which is pretty easy to guess your main story. And then co-op battle, we'll touch on that a little later. Right now, we'll just go right here to the story mode. You have multiple characters, you have to go through many of their stories. Each chapter has 10 fights to it. I think way too many. 3, maybe 5 is good enough, but 10 on the same level of difficulty enemy is just a bit too much. It drags on way too long. Like, you look at it and you have chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 50 stages of kind of the same thing, and especially when the enemies don't really change from like 1.1 to 1.10. It is unnecessary to have that many. Now, when you do these story missions, we'll choose this one, chapter 1 of 1. Here you choose your character. You only can choose one character, by the way. So, unlike many other mobile games, instead you set up a singular character that will be followed by CPUs of other players' characters. So we're going to start with Alice here. We'll use her. We'll jump in. Now, this is the presentation of the game. If you don't know, I'm very into presentation. Mobile games, I feel, have the ability to show art better than most other games because of the ease of access. And so it is nice that it's all voice acted. Again, when I say it's cliche, I think it's just a bit hammy. The characters talk in vague terms. The story itself is kind of vague. There's an obvious skeleton to the story, but I think it's way too vague with characters saying things because it seems more cooler or dramatic. And you know, at first glance when I started the story, I was like, I'm not feeling anything from this. The characters don't really mean a lot. A lot of them are stereotypes of voice acting, I should say. One of the characters I like more is Cinderella, due to her attitude. You know, I've seen these character archetypes one too many times. Again, if you're new to this kind of stuff, it's no problem. But here's where I get down to the presentation of the game. Instead of showing these panning shots of the characters, because like if I go to 1.2, it'll just be like a zoom in of maybe her boobs. There are plenty of times where it's just a zoom in of Alice's boobs, or her eyes, or her legs, something like that. Instead, every chapter should have had its own image. When you proceed through those 1 to 10 stages, you see pictures or at least zooms of this image. And then when you finally hit the final chapter and get to the last cutscene of that chapter, you finally see the full image in live 2D. How cool would that have been? It excels at storytelling because here the storytelling is very brief, and it could have easily nailed something like that. But instead, you just get these still images of these characters. There are some chapters where 2 characters interact with each other, and it's just both of their stills right on top of each other. Instead, it should have been an actual drawing that was then converted into live 2D of the characters interacting with each other. But instead, we just get this, and it's kind of low effort. So now we're going to go ahead into the battle. Here, this is the main battle. I wish I could make it slower, but I can't. These are the characters controlled by not controlled, but they're CPUs of other players. They attack on their own. You really have no control over them. At any time, these CPUs could be taken over by a human player. Anytime. We're going to have to go through battle over and over and over again just to show you how this goes. And there's dialogue at some chapters. He's done. He's defeated. I feel like the early chapters are way too easy. It is because of these CPUs that are here. Now, down here, you see these weapons. These are weapon skills. They're different weapons that do different attacks. Right here, some of them show like 2 icons of people. That means it hits multiple enemies. One shows 1. Some of them show like little arrows like this one, so it decreases defense and attack. And as you go through, you have a certain stock of these weapon skill cards. Once you go through all of them, you have to refresh it. So here, we use this. There's an attack. This is what I mean, like, early stuff is just a bit too easy. I don't care about late game stuff. I care about, like, how you get into early game, because I feel like that's the most important part. If you don't feel any sense of, not challenge per se, but fulfillment in early game, I think you're doing something wrong. Easily, throughout most of the early chapters of Chapter 1, or Act 1 as they call it, you can get through most of the game doing really nothing but auto gameplay. Like, I understand the nuances. There's plenty of nuances to the gameplay. Like I said, if you just get in the beginning of it and you're not really feeling much about it, later gameplay won't feel as good. hopefully that makes sense. So we can. This guy's gonna die real fast. You know, again, I understand where the inherent challenge is. I'm just gonna put it on auto at this point. I understand where the inherent challenge comes from in the gameplay and the nuance. I just feel like it didn't do anything in particular to wow me. And let's be honest here. Most of these mobile games, it doesn't matter what kind of event will happen, this kind of gameplay doesn't change. The main aspect of the gameplay never changes. There's a thing called the 30 seconds of gameplay, and it says like these 30 seconds should encompass your game, and you should be able to stretch that amount of fun. I think it's like 30 seconds of fun or something like that. You should be able to stretch those 30 seconds of gameplay into its own full-fledged game with little nuances there. But this one is just kind of unsatisfactory. Not unsatisfactory, it's unsatisfying. And if I can, I'll just let this go on auto. Maybe they should have done is let you build your own team in a way, because these CPUs really do kill the fun. You can't control them, you have zero influence over them. They just kind of do whatever the hell they want, and a lot of them are from players who are pretty strong. So the players end up steamrolling everything before you get a chance to do anything. You know what, there it is. It almost feels like you're kind of useless in a way. Like, look at these guys and how much damage they do. My input really means nothing here. Like, the boss is already done. It's only been less than 10 seconds. Because I don't like the idea that a game was solely built for in-game, hard-level content. Much to some people's disbelief, not everyone is at that level when it comes to mobile games. And it's solely because people do take mobile games casually. So not everyone's dropping a bunch of money, or they're grinding 6 hours of their day, you know? Now, to be honest, I feel like the battles could have been a bit more dynamic if they didn't go for chibi characters. Maybe if you had your main character standing in the foreground and you had the enemies like on the side or something like that, and they did, again, use the live 2D models to do something a bit special. And then maybe you could have the CPU characters, they could be on the bottom as little squares or whatever, you could touch on them to call their abilities. I feel like that would be a bit more engaging and cooler too. We see so many games that use chibis and small little animated characters when you rarely see any that use full-fledged characters. So next up we have is the character sets. You can create a new set. These are the characters you take into battle. Again, you only can have one. You would choose your character, so let's do Sleeping Beauty here, and you would choose a weapon. You can just do recommended, but you can also choose whichever ones you want. And every character has a specialty and usable weapons. So right here, this heavy hammer or mace type weapon, Sleeping Beauty here, Crusher version, is better at that. So if you have more of those types, she excels at that. You can also give them armor. You have head, body, hands, and feet. And then your nightmares, which are summons in the game, which allow you to do they give you like stat buffs, or they can do damage, all sorts of things. And then you also have sub gear, which gives passively to the character. You can upgrade your gear as well. Upgrading materials come in pretty frequently. They're not worth much experience, I should say, but they do come in frequently. You can also limit break the gear. This is when you have duplicates, pretty standard stuff. You can evolve the gear and you can upgrade the character's class as well. Each character at the start can only go to level 10. So let's use Alice over here. And you can increase their level with mastery. You earn mastery from beating stages. There are also items that can give you mastery as well. Then here you have your gacha. I've already summoned quite a bit on this one. I had like 2,000 something crystals. Probably even more than that. But I just wanted to summon a little bit. Each unlockable class, you have to get a certain weapon. So here, the Tome of Dependence, I got that one. And I also have the Staff of Bondage for my Alice. The only one I'm missing is the Blade of Depravity. So here they're doing the gacha right. At least when you summon a multi, you are getting 11. And there is a guaranteed of S and higher. So we might as well do one right now. Yeah, I don't care to save them that much. I wish the pull did feel a little bit better. You have your little dog guys here. And they say a little skit sometimes. Wonder if they'll... Nope, they didn't give me S1. So there's a bunch of animations they do, which will give you another S+ book. They're pretty cool. It's quirky, and it's full of character. So we got that, and that. I've said this before, character gachas are the strongest gachas out there. The ones where you pull for characters. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand this game has very limited characters, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay that they have limited characters. So a weapon gacha is the only thing they could do. But I'm just saying, normally character gachas survive better, or they just do better in general, because pulling characters feels a bit better than pulling for weapons and items. I mean, other than that, everything else is just kind of standard. It's your standard fare. Maybe my expectations were just too high. Maybe I thought this was going to be a really cool game, would the presentation really be nice, and I think that's what gets me the most, is that its presentation was poor, especially in Chapter 1. Chapter 1, they could have done way better, because that's normally the chapter you pull people in, but no, it just didn't work for me. Now, I've heard 2B is in the game. I want to see what's going to happen then, so I'll hold on to the game just a little longer. My current gripes, my current feelings on the game aren't going to change, most likely. I'll give it a 98% they are not going to change, because I felt like I've experienced most of what it can offer. Whatever broken characters may come across, or broken weapons, it really doesn't matter. Since I said before, I've already understand the gameplay loop, and it's not that satisfying. I forgot to mention, while we're here, this is the co-op. Here you can just join into any random one. You have friends as well. I guess one of the guys I'm friends with is doing it. But there's no queuing up, you just jump right into it. So if a person finishes it really fast, I'm not sure what happens then. It's an interesting take on multiplayer, but I feel like I don't feel like it's the right approach. I'm used to the conventional queuing up, having a lobby or something like that, matchmaking, but this feels just a bit too sporadic, like just jumping into anything you can. And now with that done, I think I'm pretty much finished here. I don't hate the game, I just feel like they could have done way better. And like I said, I didn't want to look up anything when coming into this, but maybe I should have done that to temper my expectations. You know, did it live up to the hype after being delayed so many times? And you know, I'm actually subscribed to the Square Enix YouTube channel, so I see SINoALICE stuff all the time. Or at least like these little CMs that they put out. They don't show any gameplay in them, it's just like the character stuff. But I mean, hey, that's my take on it. I want to hear your full thoughts on the game. Do you think it's too early to really rate it? And for that, I'm going to be a little bit defensive and say I've played a lot of these games. I kind of know what I see from just a good sample size. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you see yourself playing it for any longer? It's up to you. I don't really want to curb your opinion on what you think about the game. I'm not telling you to drop or anything like that. I'm just giving you how I feel about it. And you know, I feel like I was harsher because I knew there was expectation for this game. Any other mobile game, I probably wouldn't have cared and just say, I don't like it. But this one, I really did want to give it a try. But I just didn't see too much in it. Again, leave me your opinions down below. I'll definitely see you guys next time. Peace out.